America held hostage. Day 95 of the Trump dictatorship. And Trump's personal counterterrorism chief is now threatening to charge anybody who criticizes Trump with aiding and abetting terrorists. I don't know if the surprise is that the Trump dictatorship of the morons did this so fast, or that they waited so long. And it is the dictatorship of the morons by the team of idiot rivals, and as such, as the wheels fall off, as Trump's poll numbers collapse, as Trump crashes the world economy, as Trump can't keep one economic policy in place for 2 consecutive hours, as Trump depopulates the life or death bureaucracy fostering public health and education and safety and scientific research and climate change, as the president of the New York Fed predicts 5% unemployment within the year, as his minions literally disappear U.S. citizens and others with legal rights to be here off our streets and ship them to foreign hells, as his Secretary of Defense might as well be shouting our battle plans at passersby on a Washington street corner, as we betray and threaten our allies and reward the scum of the earth, both kinds, Russian scum and non-Russian scum, as the media and academia and the law firms and the judiciary cover their own asses and throw the rest of us to the lions, as the nation collapses because it is day 95 of the Trump dictatorship of the morons, led by the most moronic public figure in our history. There is only one play left for the feral animal in charge, the one with the failing reptile brain. There is only one play left for Trump. We've all known it would come to this. We've all warned it would come to this. We've all predicted they would try to ease the knife in slowly, that they'd take the boiling frog route. And here it comes. It is in every piece of political science fiction from 1984 to V for Vendetta. We are now here. If everything Trump deserves criticism and gets criticism, there will be only one thing left for Trump and his gang to do, and that is to prosecute criticism of Trump and to claim those who criticize Trump are aiding and abetting terrorists.
People who love America, like the president, like his cabinet, like the directors of his agencies, who want to protect Americans. And then there is the other side that is on the side of the cartel members, on the side of the illegal aliens, on the side of the terrorists. And you have to ask yourself, are they technically aiding and abetting them? Because aiding and abetting criminals and terrorists is a crime in federal statute.
You doubtless recognize there the foppish voice of the imbecilic Sebastian Gorka, the former Viktor Orban advisor, so fringe and so cringe that Trump ushered him out of his first White House during its 7th month. Well, he's back, trying to sound sane on Newsmax, threatening to make criticism of the Fuhrer a terrorist-adjacent act or even terrorism itself because there are no adults to stop Trump this time. And now Gorka is deputy assistant to the president and senior director for counterterrorism, and thus he is a clear and present danger to the stability of this country, and not just some asshole so sketchy yet so egotistical that to the first inauguration he wore not only that beard that consumes half the nation's supply of Just for Men, but also a tunic. When was the last time you saw somebody wearing a tunic? And a garish medal with a conflicted history connected to both Hungarian World War II Nazi resistors and Hungarian World War II Nazi collaborators. But ultimately, so bizarrely inappropriate because the medal looks either like an Eastern European fascist idea of class or something a minor league hockey team would wear as part of its special uniform on Ren and Stimpy night. Well, Sebastian Gorka, whoever the F he really is, has now begun the process of trying to make criticizing Trump an act of terrorism. The full thought crime of 1984. The satirical but unbearably terrifying political torturer played by Michael Palin in Terry Gilliam's movie Brazil. The disappearing of the Stephen Fry character in V for Vendetta after he satirized the paranoid, crazy dictator. the countless "this is really happening" stories of true life torture in Spain and Germany and Venezuela and 1,000 other places. It's not enough, apparently, to wrap up a bankroll of a couple of $1 billion and threaten to metaphorically beat the owners of ABC and CBS and NBC to death with it and know that at least one of them will fold. And one day, like day before yesterday, you'll read that the executive producer of 60 Minutes has left CBS News after 37 years because his bosses are collaborators and colluders and goddamned cowards. It's not enough, apparently, to try to stochastically inspire vigilante death squads against reporters. It's not enough to threaten universities, usually universities with strong journalism programs like Columbia, with financial destruction and extra-constitutional judicial overlords. It's not enough to prosecute news organizations and reporters about stories and leaks when you are really just trying to force them into praising Trump like they did at the Washington Post. It's not enough, apparently, to put individuals in your crosshairs so that one day I wake up to watch people I worked with and trusted because they had spine and ethics fold up like a 3-card Monte dealer's table during a raid. People like Jeff Shell, now destroying CBS News, or people like Claire Shipman, now destroying Columbia University and thus the Columbia Journalism School. None of that is enough, because none of that has worked. Because none of that has scared enough people viscerally. None of that has scared enough people personally. And the only thing still working in the Trump dictatorship is the prospect of scaring people into obeying. Also, there is the realization that if you think it is going badly now in Trump land, wait. Wait until the predictions come true. The predictions that the CEOs of Walmart and Target and Home Depot reportedly made to Trump this past Monday in the Oval Office, that it's not just that his tariff madness and his unshakable delusion that it was all so much better in the year 1893, a delusion so tenacious, so complete within him, that it is worthy of being a full visual and auditory hallucination caused by a brain tumor. The prediction that all this will not just disrupt supply chains, not just double or treble inflation, not just leave store after store in every city in this country with empty shelves, but that it will do all that within 2 weeks. Wait until those predictions come true. And it's a matter of degree now, because Trump folded again on tariffs after those warnings and folded on China on Tuesday because he was so scared by what the CEOs told him. And then the delusion gripped him again yesterday, and he went right back to his brain symptom of financing the national budget with effing tariffs. But wait until the undeniability of empty shelves hits the new cathedrals of America. The Target in Hoover, Alabama, 191,000 square feet. The Home Depot in Vauxhall, New Jersey, 217,000 square feet. The Walmart at Crossgates Commons in Albany, New York, 260,000 square feet. Wait until their shelves are empty and the worshipers of Our Lady of the Mega Box Store riot in the parking lots. 260,000 square feet of a Walmart. I mean, St. Peter's Basilica is only 247,000 square feet. Sorry about your Pope, says the American tourist. And this stadium here you got, this is nice, but it sure ain't as impressive as the Walmart at Crossgates Commons. Back to Dr. Gorka and his lifetime supply of Just for Men beard. When there is nothing left in this Trumpian shit show but criticism of it, the pompous, falsely ominous, simplistic effort to terrify the Americans with the minds of children from the dregs of humanity like Sebastian Gorka will take on a totally different meaning. The clip of what he threatened, and to use the cliche, it is so full of false and illogical extrapolation. It is so Sebastian Gorka that it hurts. That clip is nearly a week old, but it is just resonating today after Axios has managed to put the truly evil pieces together, while, as usual, never passing judgment on the morality of any of it, like they were writing out assembly instructions for a potty seat for a child, or for Trump. I'll quote from this Axios compendium now. Trump administration officials are suggesting their immigration crackdown could expand to include deporting convicted U.S. citizens and charging anyone, not just immigrants, who criticizes Trump's policies. 1. Sending convicted U.S. citizens to prisons abroad. This has been floated as a spin-off of Trump's deal with El Salvador, where a high-security prison is holding about 300 U.S. immigration detainees that the administration says are suspected criminals and gang members. Quote, homegrowns are next, Trump said during an Oval Office meeting with, I would point out, as an aside, his employee, Salvadoran President Nayib Bukele, last week, referring to sending Americans convicted of crimes to serve time in foreign prisons. 2, putting critics of the administration's policies in jeopardy. Some officials say U.S. citizens who criticize administration policies could be charged with crimes based on the notion they're aiding terrorists and criminals. Then comes the quote from the Gorka interview. Trump's team has also questioned the legality of civic groups providing immigrants with Know Your Rights trainings on how to respond to federal agents. Border czar Tom Homan suggested that such seminars help people evade law enforcement. I would suggest it allows people to evade fascists like Tom Homan and their brown shirt Gestapo death squads. And I would note also that Tom Homan in particular has something for Alexandria Ocasio-Cortez and is drooling at the thought of putting handcuffs on her. Quote, they're trying to use terrorism laws to attack people for their speech and for their political activism, and that's an authoritarian effort, said Carrie Talbot, co-executive director of the Immigration Hub, an immigration advocacy group. 3, questioning the authority of court orders. The administration's resistance to returning Kilmar Abrego Garcia, who was legally in the U.S. with an order not to be deported back to El Salvador, but was deported to the prison there anyway, has raised questions about how far Trump's team can go in trying to skirt court orders. The White House says the decision to return Abrego Garcia rests with El Salvador, because the U.S. Supreme Court told the administration only to facilitate his return, not effectuate it. Axios, of course, peppered this with its moronic, life for dummies interjections like, why it matters. I've always wondered what their coverage of an impending nuclear war would look like. Why it matters, because everybody would be dead. Axios also missed one other component. This is from Reuters from a month ago now. U.S. House Speaker Mike Johnson on Tuesday warned that Congress's authority over the federal judiciary includes the power to eliminate entire district courts, as the White House rails against activist judges blocking Trump's agenda. Johnson told reporters the numerous injunctions issued by judges nationally that have stymied Trump's initiatives were part of a dangerous trend. This ugly little useless Johnson is talking about defunding the judges. And if the Democrats can't frame that as Republicans want to defund law enforcement, I give up. What in whole all this indicates is that Trump is, as I suggested earlier, out of moves. He is, in fact, now road testing using terrorism charges against Americans for their exercise of free speech. They've already done it in the Khalil case at Columbia. Then Trump said the quiet part out loud about homegrowns. The idiocy of the DEI Attorney General Blondie is another facet of this. Remember her boast that attacks on Tesla dealerships or Tesla vehicles would be treated as domestic terrorism. Not sure if this includes keying the cars, though the newspaper The Daily Mail reported that a decade ago, Musk found a foreign-born whistleblower in his company about bad brakes on Teslas and threatened to deport her and her team, and that was in 2014. But if you put all these components together, you may face a terrorism charge for criticizing how good a car a Tesla is, or for criticizing how good a president a Trump is. The other headlines: Dick Durbin is retiring. Good. Should have happened 2 elections ago. Take Schumer with you. And take Ron Johnson with you. There are dumber senators. There are more dangerous Republican Johnsons. There are snottier politicians, but no one quite combines these 3 attributes as brilliantly as Russia Ron. His newest gambit as chair of the Senate Permanent Subcommittee on Investigations. He wants one. He has declared that World Trade Center Building 7 collapsed due to a, quote, controlled demolition, something disproved literally on 9/11 and believed only by morons and rich losers who have never held any elected office other than the Senate seat they bought from Wisconsin. They brought down Ron's brain with a controlled demolition long before 9/11. Also today, the last king of 538.com, Elliot Morris, reports Trump has completely spent his approval ratings on immigration and the economy and the cost of living. At the beginning of February, he was a net +8 on the economy. +8. He's now at -10. At the same time, he was +5 on the cost of living. He's now at -22. And on immigration, in the middle of February, he was at +12. He's now at just +2.5. On immigration, he is hemorrhaging his support, specifically and generally. The overall, well, he was at +5 in February. He is now 12 points lower at -7. New theory on the Kristi Noem handbag theft. The one literally stolen out from under her at a D.C. restaurant with $3,000 in cash inside to pay for the family Easter dinner. I assume because her family had long since learned to disbelieve her promises like, I'll put it on my card, or I'll take care of your dog. Police think the culprit at an adjoining table gradually pushed the handbag away from Noem with their foot. My addition to this theory is that Noem has by now had so much work done that she could not move her head anymore to the side to check. The White House Correspondents' Dinner is Saturday. Having been forced to attend in 2 different centuries in far happier circumstances, my pro tip to the members of the D.C. political media industrial complex consists of just 2 words: Uber Eats. And your Pete Hegseth update. He's still there, I guess, but he's clearly not all there. Jennifer Jacobs of CBS News reports that Hegseth has made a major change at the Pentagon. He has spent thousands of dollars to install in the green room next to the press briefing room a makeup room, a new director's chair, and a large mirror with vanity bulbs has been installed. All true, says the Pentagon, but the Hegseth spokesperson proudly insists Pete Hegseth does not have a makeup artist. He does his own makeup himself, because all warfighters need to know when to powder their nose. And Trump is still behind Hegseth because, well, all presidents need to know when to empty another can of spray on their hair matrix, or another carload lot of bronzer on their reptilian skin.
Here we go again. It's just a waste of time.
Why do you still have confidence in him?
He is doing a great job.
Why do you still have confidence?
Because he's doing a great job.
Even if he's very
Ask the Houthis how he's doing.
Why? Were they in the Signal chat too? Also of interest here, no word yet from HBO Max as to when and where the memorial services will be held for Bill Maher's career, now that it has been ended by a pitch-perfect guest essay in the New York Times. If by now you have somehow not read it, I am not going to spoil your surprise by telling you about it, reading from it, nor telling you who the author is. Well, I'm not going to do that now. I'll do it next. This is Countdown.
This is Countdown with Keith Olbermann.
Still ahead on this edition of Countdown, all new as it is. Did I ever tell you about the time I sang and danced on Broadway? I mean, in an actual Broadway show, actually on Broadway. A political Broadway show. No, I didn't tell you because I had completely forgotten about it until I went to see George Clooney in Good Night and Good Luck, and then I forgot about it again. Until it turned out that my foot doctor's office is across the street from where George Clooney is doing Good Night and Good Luck. Anyway, my Broadway career that was so bad it would have made Zero Mostel and or Nathan Lane and the producers proud. Next in Things I Promised Not to Tell. First, believe it or not, there's still more new idiots to talk about. The roundup of the miscreants, morons, and Dunning-Kruger effect specimens who constitute the latest other worst persons in the world. Worse than me dancing on Broadway. LeBron's worse, Congressman Derek Van Orden. If you want a living, breathing example of evidence that the new research is correct, that for years the American military has been giving our war fighters brain damage and PTSD because our weapons move so violently when they are shot or otherwise employed that just training on them literally shakes a soldier's brain. If you need to be able to point at somebody and say, like this guy, look at the brain damage the military did to this guy. All he did was shoot a rifle. It's Congressman Van Orden of Wisconsin. I mean, I don't know how this actually works because I'm not a brain surgeon, but it always seemed to me, having had a concussion, that if you had a small brain to begin with, it would rattle more, thus creating more damage. But who knows? Maybe if you have a small brain to begin with, there's less to damage. Anyway, Van Orden has got major issues. He's got anger problems. He's got seeming delusions of grandeur. He likes to order people around, and of course, he is a buffoonish idiot. Maybe it was the machinery in the Army that caused this one social media disaster the other day. Maybe it was just that he was made this way. Governor Tony Evers of Wisconsin tweeted a video trying to hook the upcoming National Football League draft in Green Bay, Wisconsin, with the Year of the Kid. So Van Orden found a way to take this benign, kind of meaningless, generic tweet and turn it into a way to express all of his own problems. Anger, low-class use of language, conspiracy theory addiction, stupidity. And he did this all in a retweet of only 10 words in length. Gotta hand it to him for that. Great job, turd, a sitting U.S. congressman writes, referring to the governor of his own state. How many kids in Milwaukee can read? And of course, Van Orden misspelled the word how. He spelled it H-O-E. So the RT actually reads, and continued to read all day, how many kids in Milwaukee can read? which by itself tells you everything you need to know about Derek Van Orden, but which, because of that one word, ho, may lead us down the path of wondering if there's another issue Mr. Van Orden has been dealing with. Anywho, the runner-up worser, Brian Kilmeade of Fox and Friends. I've mentioned before, it's a real hall of fame of dumb white guys and gals over there. Jesse Waters, Will Cain, Janine Pirro, Rachel Campos Duffy. But if you had first draft choice, where would you go? Where would you start? You would start with Kilmeade. He has been there forever. He has been there literally twice as long as anybody else. And now he's made a major, major boo-boo even for him. Interviewing his former colleague Pete, as in PTSD, I'll just text it to you, Hegseth, at 8:21 Eastern the other morning. Brian Kilmeade was clearly upset at having to do this interview, and with good reason. Nervous, worried. Hegseth was so jumpy, arms flailing, mugging to the camera twice as much as usual, that you would have thought he was just coming in at that hour of the morning, not just getting up. Hey, wait a minute. Maybe he was just getting up. No, I bet he was just coming in. Anywho, Kilmeade's part of this was saying, as usual, exactly what the Trumpists did not want him to say, the Freudian slip of all Freudian slips at the moment. Quote, here to set the record straight himself, the former secretary, the current Secretary of State, Pete Hegseth. First off, state? No, I'm sorry. I would have accepted Secretary of Defense or Secretary of Vodka. Also, the former secretary? You called Hegseth the former secretary? You meant to call him the former Secretary of Defense? Brian, I believe that's what we call in the business a spoiler alert, bro. But our winner, Bill Maher, or whatever is now left of him. And frankly, all that is left of him now is pretty much graffiti. If you have not read the best piece of satirical news writing this year, I urge you to go do so. It was in Monday's New York Times op-ed section. And as in the last episode, I now read from somebody else's epic literary composition. First it was the Object of Power is Power speech by O'Brien, as written by Orwell in the novel 1984. But now I would like to read just a couple of paragraphs from this instant classic in the New York Times, and I urge you to go finish it. There is not one wasted word nor misplaced comma in the whole damn beautiful thing. Title of the guest essay, My Dinner with Adolf. Opening 3 paragraphs. I have to quote them. I can't edit it down. Quote, imagine my surprise when in the spring of 1939 a letter arrived at my house inviting me to dinner at the old chancellery with the world's most reviled man, Adolf Hitler. I had been a vocal critic of his on the radio from the beginning, pretty much predicting everything he was going to do on the road to dictatorship. No one I knew encouraged me to go. He's Hitler. He's a monster. But eventually I concluded that hate gets us nowhere. I knew I couldn't change his views, but we need to talk to the other side, even if it has invaded and annexed other countries and committed unspeakable crimes against humanity. 2 weeks later, I found myself on the front steps of the old chancellery and was led into an opulent living room where a few of the Führer's most vocal supporters had gathered. Himmler, Goering, Leni Riefenstahl, and the Duke of Windsor, formerly King Edward VIII. We talked about some of the beautiful art on the walls that had been taken from the homes of Jews. But our conversation ended abruptly when we heard loud footsteps coming down the hallway. Everyone stiffened as Hitler entered the room. He was wearing a tan suit with a swastika armband and gave me an enthusiastic greeting that caught me off guard. Frankly, it was a warmer greeting than I normally get from my parents. And it was accompanied by a slap on my back. I found the whole thing quite disarming. I joked that I was surprised to see him in a tan suit, because if he wore that out, it would be perceived as un-Führer-like. That amused him to no end, and I realized I'd never seen him laugh before. Suddenly he seemed so human. Here I was, prepared to meet Hitler, the one I'd seen and heard, the public Hitler. But this private Hitler was a completely different animal. And oddly enough, this one seemed more authentic, like this was the real Hitler. The whole thing had my head spinning. Forgive my sudden move towards my pathetic impression of the pathetic Mar, but it seemed fitting at the moment. I might add this piece, this extraordinary bit of writing, only gets better from here. And I add further that with admiration, pride, and as somebody who's actually written stuff for the Times op-ed pages, pure bright green envy, I am not in the same universe as the author of that. And the author of that is, of course, Larry David. Somebody I'm proud to call a friend and a friend of the podcast. Again, read the whole thing. That's just the start. This part about the art stolen from the homes of Jews, just thrown away like that. Oh my goodness. The irony, of course, is, as the historian Rick Perlstein noted, in the 30s, the Nazis really did what Larry David fantasizes about in this piece in the Times. They really did bring critics in to meet Hitler at one of Hitler's homes, and mostly they did this to tamp down the widespread assumptions in Germany that the unmarried Hitler was gay. There is even a book about this campaign, this PR whitewashing, that invited the Bill Mahers of 1939 to come meet the Donald Trump of 1939. The book is titled Hitler at Home by Despina Strategatos from Yale Books from 2015. Larry's satire is so good, it's real. The fact of that book makes Larry's piece even better. But nothing will ever top the best part of Larry's vivisection of Mar, which is he never once in the piece mentions Mar by name, never mentions Mar's obsequious, squirming praise of Trump after dinner with him at the old chancellery. Now, there could be a good reason for not mentioning Bill Maher, because after what Larry David wrote about him, there no longer is a Bill Maher left to mention. Bill, I hope they saved what's left of him to drop with the rest of the confetti in Times Square on New Year's Eve. Maher, today's other worst person in the world! To the number one story on the countdown and things I promised not to tell, and this actually falls into the category of things I forgot to tell. It may be a sign of age. I like to think it's a sign of having done so much in a now 50-year career in front of microphones and audiences. But it could be the idea of age. But I had, until a couple of weeks ago, completely forgotten that I once sang and danced on Broadway. I don't mean out in the street when I used to work in Times Square. I mean on the Broadway stage with an audience who paid money to see it. I was not the star of the show. Thank goodness it would have closed during the first act. But nonetheless, I sang and danced on the stage of the Belasco Theater, and I did it twice, meaning someone made the decision that after the first time I did it, they should have me come back and do it again. Here's the background. In the spring of 2017, I got a call from Michael Moore. Michael and I have done countless things together, landmark events in our respective careers. He was the first guest on the first edition of Countdown on Current TV in 2011 when we beat both CNN and MSNBC in the ratings, even though our network was in digital, might as well have been in black and white, might as well have been available only in 3 cities in the country. And we beat them. And Mike did that. I did it too. Mostly Mike. We did a thing, believe it or not, speaking of Bill Maher, we did a thing for Bill Maher in which Michael and I did the halftime show when Marr once did a live stand-up special on HBO and then went to a different studio to do a live edition of his real-time I Capitulate to Trump, whatever the name of the show is called. We did the show in between while he went from one theater to the other in Washington. And we've been on each other's programs and on each other's podcasts and on each other's coattails for years. Michael and I have always gotten along very well, and that's often a challenge, both for him and for me. The call from Michael was he's going to do a one-man show on Broadway, but they can't really trust it to be just one person. They want to experiment. They've done a couple of them already, but in previews, one guy talking for an hour and a half, as good as that might be, is a little challenging if you're seated in a theater and you're expecting, I don't know, The Lion King, songs, something. Now, they did have a wow finish to this thing that was songs and lights and dancing, but that you didn't see till the end. So the idea was, let's break this up at some point. Let's have a surprise guest, a different guest, show up in the middle of Michael's one-man show every night at the Belasco Theater, unannounced, and just have Michael talk to him. 10 minutes, 20 minutes, whatever works. Would you come in, Keith, and be one of the first people we try this with? In fact, would you be the first person we would try this with? And I said, of course I would. So I get to the theater, and they explain to me what we're going to do and how I'm going to enter and just walk on. And I said, you sure you just want me to walk on? People are going to think I'm just rushing the stage, aren't they? Oh, no, people will recognize you instantly and know that's not a problem or anything. I went, are you sure? Anyway. Then they said, at the end of the show, the premise of Michael's show is that to defeat Trump, we must confront our fears. We must, some of us, choose to run for office. We must express ourselves when we are not used to expressing ourselves. We must protest when we're not used to protesting. And we must put ourselves on the line to some degree. And he used as an example something that really rang home with me. For years, for decades, the death knell of anyone's career in entertainment in America has been the dreaded invitation to appear on one show and one show alone in American television. Dancing with the Stars. When you are asked to be on Dancing with the Stars, it means you are or shortly will be dead to the world of television. Yes, they invited me. Yes, I simply burned the letter. Yes, they invited Tucker Carlson, and he did the one thing you should never do, which is say yes. And he has been since dead to the world of television. He now is out there in the extremes, first to Fox and now to a place where he's not reachable by human language. I mean, he had a good head start on that, but this really is, I think on behalf of the United States of America, I, as the judge ruling on your sanity case, say, etc. But that's another topic for another edition of Things I Promise Not to Tell. Back to Michael Moore and the invitation to appear on Dancing with the Stars. He was invited. Not only did he recognize, as we all do intuitively, that's the end. But he also, particularly because, like me, he's not necessarily a great dancer. He's a big guy, like me. He's a little bigger guy than I am, in fact, and he's not really confident about physical motions in public. So he thought what would be a great example to people in the audience of really challenging yourself at this time when we need to challenge ourselves was to actually tell the story about being invited on Dancing with the Stars, and then at the end of the show, do a version of Dancing with the Stars. Put on a top hat, put on a glittery jacket, have a professional dancer, just like on Dancing with the Stars, appear out of nowhere in a beautiful skirt with all kinds of beads on it and lights and twirly things, and she comes out onto the stage going 60 miles an hour in a perfect semicircle. And then he gets up and dances with her. And as I'm being made up to go out and do my little cameo, they say, now, would you mind participating in this? And I was like, wait, you didn't mention this before. No, we find that it's probably a better idea just to bring this up once you're here inside the Belasco Theater. Just stay till the end of the show, and here's what we want you to do. It's nothing big. When Michael is out there dancing with the woman from essentially Dancing with the Stars, we want you to, again, appear out of nowhere, go out onto the stage, and interrupt them dancing. And I went, and then dance with the woman from Dancing with the Stars. No, we want you to tap her on the shoulder and start dancing with Michael. Well, I'm as open-minded as the next guy, but it seemed to me that this was probably a bad idea. So I did it anyway. I also had, as I've had recently, problems with my feet. So I was actually in bad shape, knee and foot-wise. And yet, the possibility of being on stage, on a Broadway stage, at least this one time in my life. I mean, when would I get the opportunity to dance in public, however badly I might do it? Well, there were a few extra added efforts to this. For one thing, the other part of this was Michael's fear of being arrested for saying something, for some sort of threat that he might be perceived as making against Trump by doing this show. And it was a setup for the police to come get him while he's dancing with the woman and then the guest star, me. So this first night, they're still officially in previews. I come out unannounced and I can hear this kind of from the crowd like there's a terrorist rushing the stage. I'm thinking, I told you so. And I just come out and I'm wearing a lavalier microphone that no one can see, even on the stage. And I just come out and Michael says, "It's Keith Olbermann, everybody." And a nice response and a nice conversation. And thanks for coming out. And I walked off the stage and I said, "Do you agree with me now?" And the producer went, "Yeah, you should have like at least a microphone." And I said, "You got to do a bit." "Well, we want you to come back and do it. It went so well." I said, "You haven't seen me dance yet." "No, that's even better, especially if you break something." So at the end of the show, I'm standing in the wings going, what in the hell am I doing here? What am I doing here? Why am I out here dancing? I can't dance. He can't dance, but he's been practicing. He's been taking lessons. He's been talking about how he couldn't go on Dancing with the Stars because he can't dance. So what did he do? He took dancing lessons. He's not going on Broadway every night not knowing how to dance. You are going on Broadway tonight not knowing how to dance. So, of course, it was a terrible idea, and I did it anyway. Among other things, the dancer was really cute. Not Michael, but the professional dancer. So I come out and interrupt and start dancing with him and then start dancing with her, at which point the cops descend on the stage. And now the audience is really scared because Michael has talked about something that he said that might get him arrested. Now it looks like he's getting arrested, and maybe me too. I didn't know about the cops coming onto the stage. I was as surprised as anybody. I went then and realized that's probably not a cop. He's wearing makeup. Not even in New York is that a likelihood. So I did the whole dramatic, perils of Pauline, Dudley Do-Right, protect the girl with both hands, the dancer, the woman dancer. I shouldn't call her a girl, but that's the image she was projecting. So I'm protecting this professional woman dancer, shielding her with my body, and Michael is being arrested. And then, of course, it turns out the cops are stripper cops. And so they play the music again, and we're all out there dancing, and the stripper cops are down to their G-strings, and I'm trying to dance with the woman, and Michael is dancing with them, and then the curtain falls, and I went, oh, my God, I'm never doing this again. They called 2 weeks later and asked me to do it again, and of course I said yes. Only this time, well, I'll tell you the punchline to it at the appropriate moment. I did say to them, I have a better idea for the entrance. And they said, great, we have come up with this idea where a couple of doors open in the middle of the stage and you come out through that and you're holding a handheld microphone so it doesn't look like a terrorist attack. And I said, but there's got to be a bit. There's got to be some interruption that matches the interruption in the monologue because nobody's being told in advance that there is a guest star. Nobody knows this. It's not being billed. And in fact, if I remember correctly, they eventually put it in the program. Don't tell people that there's a guest star. First off, some nights they couldn't get a guest star. There's a guest star. Oh, there isn't a guest star. So I come out with a microphone. The spotlight is on me suddenly as Michael goes, "Wait, who's that? Is that?" And I come out going this. I do this. "Hello, my name is Elder Keith." Oh, sorry. Wrong theater. Big laugh. It is, of course, the opening words of the opening song from Book of Mormon, the only musical I've ever seen. In fact, I've seen it 12 times. My argument that anybody could sing for 3 seconds was proved correct. I sang on Broadway. I had already danced on Broadway. It was time for me to sing on Broadway, too. And it was a good way to explain what the hell is happening here, audience. And we had another nice conversation, and in fact, some news had just broken that I was able to give him. We were able to react to just things that had just happened in Trump land, and then we finished the show with the whole bit where I came out and danced, and now I'm prepared and I can really dramatically shield the dancer when the stripper cops come out to arrest us all. But here is the punchline. I had thought about this and thought about this as I was waiting to go on during the preview, during the first time to dance, that the smell of burning ham that I could perceive in the Belasco Theater was in fact me. That long ago desire to be an actor that I've told you about in a previous episode when I was instinctively aware of how I could improve a scene in The Odd Couple while doing it. In the moment, I come up with a few lines and a few movements and stares that got laughs. And the producer of this in high school, who was the high school advisor to the drama group and to the newspaper and the radio stations, I said, forget all that. F all that. Go and become an actor. You have instincts none of the rest of us have. We could never teach you. You could become one of the great actors. I'm dead serious. And then in the next time we did the show, the youngest member of the cast froze on stage and we had to bring the curtain down in the middle of The Odd Couple. He went off stage and face planted and wailed for 15 minutes. And I said, I never want to get this close to it again. I never want to see this again, let alone risk it happening to me. So my career as an actor died that day. And here it was coming back and saying, no, you can do it now. Remember, you have the gift. Step out in front of the lights. Everything will be fine. And I went and danced with a bad foot and a bad knee and no ability to dance and stripper cops. So now the second time, here's the punchline to it. When they asked me to do it again on Broadway, what did I do? I brought a change of clothes for the second appearance. I had changed into a kind of fuchsia-colored, dimpled smoking jacket for the dance scene. That's how much of a burning ham I really was. The next day, by coincidence, I spoke to my friend, the late Norman Lloyd, the actor who was then about 103 years old, who said, "Oh, you're at the Belasco. 2 points. I made my debut on Broadway at the Belasco. That was in 1938 with Orson." He meant Orson Welles, of course. And he also said, "What time was this?" I said, well, the dancing part. Yes, the dancing part. What time was that? The singing. I said, that was probably about, 9:45. So 6:45 my time here in L.A. Yes, that explains what I smelled. I had this awful smell coming from the east. It smelled like burning ham. I've done all the damage I can do here. Thank you for listening. That's me, burning ham. But it's nice to think that my late friend Norman Lloyd and I both made our Broadway debuts on the same stage. He did a little better than I did. Although I shielded that dancer really well. Brian Ray and John Philip Chanel, the musical directors of Countdown, arranged, produced, and performed most of our music. Mr. Chanel handled orchestration and keyboards. Mr. Ray was on the guitars, bass, and drums. It was produced by TKO Brothers. Our satirical and pithy musical comments are by the best baseball stadium organist ever, Nancy Faust. The sports music is the Olbermann theme from ESPN2, written by Mitch Warren Davis, courtesy of ESPN Inc. Other music arranged and performed by the group No Horns Allowed, except for that 3-second snippet from Book of Mormon. My announcer today was my friend, the new op-ed editor of the New York Times, Larry David. Everything else was, as ever, my fault. That's Countdown for today, day 95 of America held hostage. Just 1,368 days until the scheduled end of his lame duck and lame-brained term, unless Musk removes him sooner or the actuarial tables do. The next scheduled countdown is Thursday. As always, bulletins as the news warrants. No, this is Thursday. I was going to mention the fact that I might be a little cloudy because of the medication for my foot, which continues to worsen. I'll say it again. The next scheduled countdown is Monday. Unless I forget because of the medication. As always, bulletins as the news warrants, unless I can't do them because of the medication or the fact that my foot is breaking off in small pieces. Remember, impeach Trump. It won't work now. It will win the Democrats the midterms. I want polling on a presidential recall vote. And by the way, when I walk downhill now because of this foot, I look like Trump did after that one speech at West Point. Shuffle, shuffle, shuffle. Till next time, if there is one, I'm Keith Olbermann. Good morning, good afternoon, good night, and good luck.